The third and the fourth members' motions are motions debates with no legislative effect. I have accepted the recommendations of the House Committee. That is, the mover of motions may each speak, including making a reply, for up to 15 minutes, and other members each may speak for up to 7 minutes. The mover of the fourth motion has another 5 minutes to speak on the amendments, and the movers of the amendments to that motion each may speak for up to 10 minutes. I'm obliged to direct any member speaking in excess of the specified time to discontinue. Third member's motion, report of the delegation of the Panel on Environmental Affairs on its duty visit to the Republic of Korea to study its experience on waste management. Members who wish to speak in the motion debate will please press the request to speak button. And I'll call upon Ms. Cyd HO to speak and move the motion. Ms. Cyd HO. Thank you, President. As the chairman of the Panel on Environmental Protections, I move the motion which has been printed on the agenda. The EA panel visited Seoul from the 1st to the 5th of April. We studied the waste management by Korea. We met Seoul Metropolitan Council and its Environment and Water Resource Committee of government officials and representatives from private enterprises and NGOs. We understand how the Korean government has been doing in waste reduction, goods reuse, recycling, and recovering of energy from waste. The South Korea has been working very well in reducing waste, and we are very impressed. Let me talk about the views of the delegation and some recommendations. The delegation is of a view that the government's commitment is one of the major reasons for waste reduction management. There's a series of laws and systems, and the government also provide land and resources to support waste management. The delegation will urge the administration to learn from South Korea and launch initiatives as well as provide support and subsidies so as to achieve our waste management goals. There should be more investment in promoting the recycling industry in Hong Kong. The South Korean experience highlighted the importance of public participation. We urge the government that in implementing waste management policies, especially controversial ones, we should involve district organizations and other stakeholders. There should be full consultation and communication so that their concerns can be understood and targeted measures be implemented to allay their fears. And there should be economic incentive or improvement to facilities to compensate affected residents so that they can be bought in. The delegation notes that the volume-based system in South Korea has worked well, so the waste charging can be very effective as a tool to reduce waste. As we are now exploring the suitable waste charging schemes for our municipal solid waste, we would propose that the administration learn from South Korea, and there should be suitable support to those with limited means so as to lessen their burdens, and there should be wide publicity to educate the public. And also, we are of the view that waste charging alone will not be sufficient. There should be a consensus on waste reduction, and the people's habits should be changed, and there should be consistency and sustained efforts to raise public awareness, especially among the younger generation. And there should be also the publicity and education programs targeted at home carers so that they understand the importance of separation at source and the reduction of domestic waste. And the delegation will also propose that we should explore the relevant and suitable modes of public-private participation. We are particularly impressed by the successful experience of community involvement in South Korea, which learned from their beautiful store programs, and we appealed to local developers to provide rent-free shop spaces for NGOs so as to operate environmental-friendly business. And we also urge the government to invite NGOs and social enterprises to be involved in the formulation of relevant policies. There should be more support to the relevant organizations to operate second-hand goods in public markets, public car parks, and public housing estates. I also have some personal views apart from what I've said as chairman of the delegation of the panel. Some 70 members participated in the study tour. They come from different political parties, and even independent members joined the study tour. So it's very representative. We understand that we have a lot to catch up in waste management. And the government would come back to apply for the expansion of the landfills after the completion of the judicial process. And they are also going to ask for funding for incinerating facilities. We are going to urge the government to reduce waste and to promote recycling. Well, the subject of this debate is not controversial. There's no amendment proposed by members. So I'll listen to other members and also to the secretary, and then in my reply time, I will be making some further points and tell you more about the position of the Labour Department on these issues. And I'll put a question to you, and that is that the motion moved by Ms. Cyd HO be passed. Secretary for the Environment.
Mr. President, I'm grateful to Ms. Cyd HO for moving this motion. In April this year, government representatives and members of the Delegation Environmental Affairs panel went on to a duty visit in South Korea. A total of 17 members were on the group, involving different major political parties, together with the 13 officials from the government's delegation. It's a very sizable team, showing how much importance we have attached to this. It goes to show that waste management is a subject that is of common concern to both this council, the administration, and the entire community. Waste disposal and management is one of the top priorities of this administration. Is most pressing and challenging, and as early as I assumed office, what we faced with was very much the high production of waste at source, and therefore waste reduction, recycling work has to be promoted with a lot of efforts. And we also have to adopt a policy with strategy and plan, so that we'll be able to adopt a targeted approach in order to achieve specific results. On the other hand, in terms of waste disposal, what is pressing before us is that our infrastructure has not been adequate, and we have been over-relying on one single end-of-pipe treatment approach, and as a result, the energy produced from waste disposal has been largely wasted. What is even worse is that the lifespan of our landfills will be limited, and there will only be a few more years to go before we have already saturated all the landfills, and therefore if we do not deal with this in a timely manner, that could also give rise to municipal hygiene problem. That's why visiting South Korea would also offer us with the opportunity, so that we can have a better understanding and we can learn how we can step by step promote full participation by the community to reduce waste, and also work with the trade to promote the recycling industry. You can also effectively plan and construct different waste disposal facilities, and also learn of the latest waste to energy technology development, and that's why we have also accumulated valuable experience that will also help us to plan for the future. After coming back to Hong Kong, the delegation has prepared the pictures, the information and publications, and they've compiled this report. And as shown in the observation, there is a lot of area that we can learn from them. And while we learn from their experience, we will also have to look at the local circumstances in Hong Kong before we can make adjustments and formulate a policy. I'll leave the following time to members, whether or not they've taken part in the duty visit. I hope that they can also share with us their views on Hong Kong's waste management. I'll be all ears to all the views. Thank you.
Mr. Hon Cyd HO. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, volume-based waste fee system is a good reference for us as far as waste management is concerned. In 1995, according to Chapter 2, after the introduction of volume-based waste fee charging, and I quote, it has instilled behavioral changes among people, and they are more willing to reuse plastic bags and purchase reusable products. And it has also caused companies to reduce over packaging. These changes caused a major change and the development of the recycling industry. In year 2000, per capita, daily domestic waste changed from dropped to some 6,000 tons in 2011. That means volume-based MSW charging is the most effective way. And we learned that fly tipping illegally is inevitable. Although we don't agree that there should be a reporting and penalty system, but this should not pose an obstacle. And according to Chapter 5 of the report, one of the major factors is government subsidy, in particular recycling. Over the past years, the government relied on private sector in collecting and recycling recyclables. We've seen successful examples in the recycling of papers and aluminum cans, but not in plastics. The government should consider how the recycling of plastics can be made successful as papers and aluminum cans. And in the report, separation centers deal with 15 types of recyclables, including paper, wood, plastic, old clothes, and light bulbs, etc. And the recycled materials are collected by producers for reuse. And government provides abundant support, including land and factories and subsidies to help the operation of factories. I think this model may not be applicable to Hong Kong because Hong Kong lacks suitable land to set up large-scale separation centers. High labor costs may also be involved, which may pose great difficulties, which must not be ignored. For example, 120 staff has been employed in one of the separation centers, but only 60 tons per day of waste could be treated. We should rely suitably on the market mechanism and rely on the private sector on separation of waste. And I'd like to say something about the Taiwan model. The Taiwan government requires producers to pay in advance the waste treatment fees, and the money collected would go under into a fund under the Ministry of Environment, and the recyclers can collect recyclables from consumers and apply for subsidies. According to the laws of Taiwan, there are two major categories, and also further breaking them down into over 100 subcategories. When I talked to the officials there, they told us that the price for collecting recyclables might not be the highest, but they guarantee that during market fluctuations, the operators can continue to operate, and it also provides an incentive. The subsidies would be reflected in the price of products. Now, this is not the first time I mentioned the Taiwanese example. On the recycling of glass bottles and plastics, there is no reference price in the market. However, I want to point out that there is indeed reference value for these materials. In UK, there are different recycling price for recycling different types of plastics. The government needs not provide the highest price, but something should be done to help the industry in its operation. I hope in this regard we can follow the example of Taiwan. We are also a densely populated place with limited land supply. This, by mobilizing the whole community, it may be a more effective method. I hope that in the coming policy address, we can follow the State Council of Taiwan by setting up a fund of $5 billion and formulate comprehensive waste management policy so as to promote the development of a recycling industry so that we can take a big leap ahead so that under the lead of the government, the work of recycling can be rolled out and the whole community can be engaged in the cause, and also to have mutual trust and also have comprehensive facilities in this regard. Mr. Christopher Chung. Mr. President, about this duty visit to the Republic of Korea, I think it's very, very meaningful. About environmental protection policies and waste management policies in Hong Kong, we're lagging far behind, and Korea can give us an example as a pioneer in terms of incinerators, landfills, waste collection, and the restoration of Qingyo Stream. These can serve as good examples. I'd like to talk about some of the facilities I visited. First of all, food waste receptacles with RFID tags. Now, the technology development in South Korea is very advanced, in particular their mobile phones. In fact, they also deploy high-end technology in dealing with food waste and waste management, and they implement volume-based waste fee system by way of advanced technology. And they have used the RFID radio frequency identification in measuring the weight of household waste, and they have prepared household card for each household for disposal of food waste. And when they dispose of the food waste, they can tap the card on the machine so that the information of the household would be read and the door of the receptacle would be open for food waste to be dumped inside. And then it will automatically be weighed and the relevant amount would be recorded on the account of the household so that on a monthly fee would be charged by the end of the month. Now, according to the statistics, after deploying RFID in food waste collection, in several months' time, amount of food waste has reduced by 30%. The RFID technology is in fact quite common, but in fact it was invented during World War II. It is not widely used in Hong Kong. I understand that recently, during a visit to LCST, I understand only but recently our libraries have started using this technology, and we're still at the initial stage. Food waste in Hong Kong is abundant. We should learn from the South Korea's example. The use of RFID food waste receptacles. I think the government should consider it. About the Digital 21 strategy, the administration has proposed the use of Wi-Fi, which is really lagging behind, on compensation for obnoxious facilities. At present, in Hong Kong, we have landfill extension, incinerators, and also organic waste treatment facilities. All these facilities proposed face opposition from local communities. They have the not in my backyard thinking, although they agree that these facilities are necessary. So the government should consider introducing suitable compensation measures so that the local community would not be feeling that they have been deprived of their interests. And the landfill extension proposal was met with failure in this council because the government had not fully prepared for or fully considered the compensation policy on how to compensate the local community near obnoxious facilities. We have been much inspired by this experience in South Korea. So in the Well, in South Korea, originally, residents also opposed to incinerators. However, in the government provided financial incentives and consulted extensively the local neighborhood before its construction. In fact, the incinerators could turn waste into energy, and heat could be supplied to the neighborhood, and they also those living within 300 meters radius could receive a electric tariff subsidy. And we can consider these ideas. And when we go to the landfill, when we visited the landfill in Yanchuan, we understand that the biogas have been collected for generation of electricity. So the administration can also consider compensating the local neighborhood with the power generated. And next, I'd like to talk about subsidy for the recycling industry in South Korea. I think this also serves as an example for Hong Kong government. Recovery rate in South Korea currently stands at 60%, and the development of the recycling industry in South Korea has been rapid because they get funding and land support from the government. On the contrary, our government has not been providing sufficient funding support to our industry. And earlier on, some plastics recyclers protested outside LegCo as they alleged that government has been allocating much funding to NGOs. And also for green fence operations, which was introduced on the mainland, waste in Hong Kong could not be exported to mainland, and waste therefore remained in Hong Kong, and there is much room for improvement. The biggest problem is that Hong Kong has been promoting the collection of waste, but as to how they should be dealt with after collection and how it can be exported, we still face problems. So the government should reflect on these issues. It's hoped that after this duty visit, Mr. Wong, our secretary, can give funding and land support to promote the industry.
Mr. Peter Zhang. Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I would like to thank the delegation for going on this trip to look at waste management issues on behalf of Hong Kong. They have brought us some useful information. There are several issues we could discuss. First, reduction at source. So in terms of the population density and building and the built-up environment, it's very similar to Hong Kong. But 20 years ago, so started the sustainable waste management strategy. It wasn't just starting to discuss it. So they were at forefront. Many groups in Hong Kong do not support extension of landfills, building of incinerators, and so on. We've always been advocating reduction of waste at source, but for many years the governments were short-sighted. They only saw short-term benefits. They did not have a long-term social development blueprint. Now, in South Korea, they try to work at the problem on the demand side. They try to reduce waste at source. So it's no longer about extension of waste management facilities, because waste facilities, of course, handle waste, but at the same time, such facilities could be polluting and they could also create more waste. So it's just a band-aid approach. It doesn't really benefit the community. By 2016, we're going to have waste charging scheme in Hong Kong to striving to reduce waste. Now, one of the controversial points is whether waste charging should be based on volume or weight. Perhaps this is a relatively easy issue to resolve, because it doesn't matter if it's volume or weight based. It's still the same principle of if you generate more waste, you pay more. So it's relatively fair, and there shouldn't be much of a contention. Before South Korea started reduction of waste at source. They levied property tax or a fixed waste disposal fee, regardless of the volume of waste generated. But then they found the problem was that eventually they go for the pay-as-you-throw system. Now, the report didn't point out the reasons for this change, but it's easy to guess. Because if it's a fixed rate scheme, there's no incentive for the public to reduce waste or to recycle waste. As for multi-story buildings, many groups have expressed concern that the government might just charge waste on the total waste volume for an entire building out of expediency. And then the fee will be shared by each household equally. Now, that's not going to work because, again, there's no incentive for people to reduce waste. And then the government is just passing the buck to residents' organizations without any powers or rights. And instead of conflict between the government and the public, it's now a conflict among residents and the residents association, and this is not a fair approach. It's not going to help reduce waste. Now, the garbage bag in South Korea is specially designed. There are different sizes. Recyclable waste are free for disposal, and large furniture and so on have to be disposed separately. So this is something we should learn from. And also, the government gives free garbage bags to low-income families as a form of subsidy. Now, we do not know yet what the Hong Kong government plans to do. I'm going to pay close attention here as to whether there is enough assistance given to low-income households when we have the waste charging scheme, because we don't want to add to the burden to the low-income families. Now, in Hong Kong, we have published the Hong Kong Blueprint for Sustainable of Resources, and then there's the South Korea duty visit, and many in the community have also expressed their views. I hope the government will do a proper consultation with the public. The government shouldn't have its own agenda. Recent cases showed that the government couldn't wait for the judicial review on the construction of the Shek-Koo Chau incinerator. Is already planning to apply for $12.7 billion from LegCo early next year so they could proceed with the tendering exercise. And also is going to retable its funding proposal for extending the free landfills to LegCo soon. Now, I know if we delay the construction projects, it will add to the construction cost, but this is a democratic process. The government can't steamroll its way through just because it has the support of the loyalist camp and is also reached any compromise with the rural groups. Now, it doesn't matter if it's a good policy, it's not going to work this way. The administration must be realistic as well and pragmatic. It must provide the right data as the basis of discussion by the public. For example, some time ago, the media exposed this fact that for waste dumped in the free-color recycling bins, they've actually end up in the landfill again. Now, that's because many of the recycling operators do not get any support from the government. They are struggling to stay afloat in the business. But then it doesn't matter. The government still claims that the recycling rate is 48%. But how do you arrive at the figure? There are plenty of questions among the public. If the public do not have sufficient and correct information, how could we proceed with the debate? If government figures do not command public credibility, how could the people be assured? And when will we have a real waste management scheme is the cause of concern. Now, the government should support a recycling industry and so that we could boost the recycling rate and reduce waste. And there must also be more publicity and education. Thank you. Mr. Martin Liao. The report of the panel on environmental affairs on the duty visit to South Korea is comprehensive. I've learned about a lot of the waste management facilities in South Korea. It also helps us to see clearly the problems we face here in Hong Kong. We all know, and so they have much experience and they perform really well in tackling waste management. The report spells out in detail the management experience of South Korea of waste facilities, and many of this much of that experience is of great reference value to us. Now, actually, waste management not only benefits the health of the public, it also promotes economic development. For example, we also have a report that by promoting recycling waste, that could create 11,000 odd jobs and bring about an economic benefit of $34 billion. Now, in South Korea, the scheme worked because of a collaboration between the government and the private sector. For example, about half of the food waste management centers are run by the private sector. And that's something the Hong Kong government should learn from. In Cyd HO 1 and the Shaling facilities, they could only be completed by 2015 and 2017. There's a delay. For the food waste treatment facilities, every year its commissioning is delayed, and there will be another 70,000 tons of waste ending up in the landfill. There should be more sites offered for such treatment facilities, and there should be enough incentives to encourage the private sector to join in the effort. Now, for the Cyd HO 1 project, because the tendering price was too high, that's why the whole project was delayed. We shouldn't allow that to happen again. The beautiful soul of South Korea is worth mentioning. All the operating expenses are from donations, and the store is mainly managed by volunteers. And 80% of the shops do not have to pay rent. And for many of the items offered for sale, they are again from donation. Beautiful store is a huge success story. That's because there is active participation by the civil society. We can see that in terms of the green industries in South Korea, it's a success because of the effort of all parties. Now, it's always difficult to get things started. If the public could start changing some of their habits, that would be the first crucial step to be taken in waste management. The administration should enhance collaboration with the private sector, and there should be more publicity on promoting green awareness. This should become a core value of society, and then people will know exactly how to manage waste. And the government should also plow in a lot more resources to support the green industries, in particular, this recycling industry. Only then would there be hope for green industries to expand in Hong Kong. Now, for some of the waste management facilities, like extension of landfills and construction of incinerators, they could be obnoxious. So in South Korea, the government also met with opposition in building these facilities, similar to the problems we face in Hong Kong. But then the South Korean government didn't just sit on its hands. Instead, it embarked on comprehensive public consultation. It also offered financial incentives to residents who would be affected as a form of compensation, and that's helped to reduce the opposition. So this is a very important aspect, but it's been overlooked by the government all along. I think the Hong Kong government should really make active reference to the South Korean experience. Waste management is an urgent and tough issue that needs to be tackled. Just because it's difficult, the government's not dealt with it. That's from the past government. There's a problem left behind by the past government. Of course, we cannot address the issue at once, but at least there should be a comprehensive strategy for the management of municipal solid waste. And then people could see that what the blueprint is and what the strategy is. For example, a reduction of waste at source, waste charging, recycling, and building of incinerators, extending landfills, and so on. There should be a comprehensive and inclusive policy proposal. We shouldn't have fragmented proposals that government just introduced at different times, like the extension of landfill proposal. Now, there's an urgency in resolving the management of solid waste. The government should adopt a pragmatic approach in dealing with the issue. South Korea did not achieve success overnight. I think if the government and the civil society all share the same objective, then in Hong Kong, we could also come up with a long-term green industry.
Mr. Tommy Zhang. President, I'm not a member of the EA panel, but I joined the delegation in the visit to Seoul. In 1995, or since 1995, a number of waste management initiatives have been launched by the government, and as a result, the amount of waste has gone down. The recycling waste has gone up by 60%. The amount of waste has gone down by 40%. During the visit, different units told us about their recycling activities and also how they promoted reuse and so on and so forth. So does it mean that so long as Hong Kong follows the volume-based waste fee system, then we'll succeed? I think we need to understand the unique factors contributing to the success of South Korea. Now, in South Korea, they have the volume-based waste fee system, and they also have a reporting system. And those who report illegal dumping of waste will get a financial reward equivalent to 80% of the penalty, and that's really a very big incentive. But then that would mean that everyone would be like cops in disguise, and also neighbors will be keeping watch over each other. And I don't think whether Hong Kong people who treasure the neighborhood spirit would support such an idea. No, in Hong Kong we have a lot of high-rise buildings, and there are hundreds of households in each building. It will be difficult for the households to monitor each other, and such an arrangement may give rise to a lot of suspicion and hostility among the various households. And in South Korea, the recycling industry is being promoted. In Hong Kong, the government is only paying lip service to the promise to promote the recycling industries. Concerning waste recovery, waste reduction, waste recycling, in fact, little has been done. And the recycling industries have been left to struggle for survival. And then concerning food waste, now in fact we can manufacture animal feed, fish feed from animal feed, but then we don't have a poultry industry, we do not have a livestock industry, and so even if the government says that it will help the recycling industries, I really don't know whether recycling industries can really prosper in Hong Kong. And I really don't see any concrete solutions offered by the government. In South Korea, when they implement the waste treatment plans, they encountered a lot of problems. We refer to page 57 of the Chinese version of the report. The problems relating to the treatment of food waste include rising costs and opposition from the residents. And concerning the private sector's involvement, that would drop to 5% by 2018. So we can see that the cost is high, and so we can't rely solely on the private sector. Even South Korea faces this problem, not to mention Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, we do not have mature recycling industries, and we haven't done enough concerning environmental protection education. And in fact, waste treatment costs are also high. And also in South Korea, they have advanced incineration facilities. But in Hong Kong, we are still talking about whether we should construct such facilities. In South Korea, they have the waste-to-energy facilities, and they've been constructing such facilities so that while waste is being combusted, heat is recovered for the use by nearby residents. In Seoul, about 25% of the waste is incinerated and converted into energy. And in Hong Kong, we in Hong Kong are far lagging behind. Now, I want to say this, and that is the business sector is not against environmental protection, but then we don't want to always face the stick. The government likes to use the polluter pay principle to impose levies and charges. I don't think this will help to reduce waste, and I don't think this is going to be effective. What Hong Kong people want are long-term environmental protection policies which are cost-effective, and there must be proper support facilities and measures. So the government should start planning concerning these facilities and these measures, and the public should be encouraged to reduce waste. And the SMEs are in particular concerned about the fact that very often the devil is in the details. In fact, SMEs have been finding it very difficult to cope with policies implemented in recent years. So the government should understand the operational difficulties of SMEs. You mustn't do anything to reduce the competitiveness of our SMEs. And also, in fact, a part of the rates should be used for waste collection and treatment. And so if you want to impose a charge on waste treatment and disposal, you should also reduce rates. Mr. Lo Wai Kwa, I thank Ms. Cyd HO, chairman of the panel, for moving this motion so that we can give our views on the visit report. I'm a member of the EA panel, but I didn't join the visit. And then in October 2011, I and many in the sector joined the South Korean low carbon electronics industry delegation. And in fact, I was the convener. We looked at the electronic equipment recovery center, and we also visited the RQ University, the Eco-Product Research Institute of the university, to understand more about the design concepts and technology of green and low-carbon products. We also went to an enterprise producing green products, and we were given a demonstration of the domestic food waste machine, and we also went to an exhibition, and we looked we were told all the green opportunities. And concerning the report of the EA panel delegation, I've read it, and I begin to remember what I saw in 2011, and I have some new thoughts. So in what way should we learn from South Korea? I think there are three areas. First, the government should play the role of a promoter. The government should, in a timely manner, provide all the necessary support, including legislative tools and policy support. In 1986, the Waste Control Act was enacted, and then there were local facilities. And then there was the Act on Promotion of Saving and Recycling of Resources, aiming to reduce waste at source. Producers and consumers each have a part to play to reduce waste and to recycle waste. The Ministry of Environment is responsible for environmental policies in South Korea. It provides administrative and financial support to local governments. It has also set up subsidiary public organizations to provide the necessary support. In implementing waste management, the South Korean government has legislative backing and has administrative support, and as a result, previously the waste production in 1981 per person was 1.77 kg, but the number dropped to 0.95 kg, down 46% in 2011. And in fact, the overall waste recovery rate was 83% in 2011. In Hong Kong, we are far lagging behind. We don't have the necessary policies, and in fact, it was only in May 2013 that the Hong Kong Blueprint for Sustainable Use of Resources was published. In 2011, the per capita waste generated per person was 1.27 kg, and it was hoped that by 2022 it would be reduced to 0.8 kg. And then concerning the consultation on MSW charging, it won't end till 1 month later. I think the whole government should learn from the South Korean government, and policies and measures to reduce waste should be adopted. And in South Korea, the government encourages the establishment of the recycling industries. In 2011, during our visit, we visited an electronic product recovery center operated by the Electronics Association. The association operates many recovery centers throughout the country for the recovery and the recycling of electronic products. The South Korean government provides long-term low-interest loans to small recyclers so that they can develop new technologies. And experts do provide consultancy service to the small recyclers. And the separation plants are subsidized by the government. A site is provided by the government. And because of the active support by the different levels of government, in 1999, there were 1,650 recycling companies in South Korea. In 2009, there were over 4,000. And in 2009, the economic effectiveness of recycling companies amounted to 7 billion Hong Kong dollars. So the government should provide funding support and technological support for the recycling industries so that they can set up advanced recycling facilities. It's important that waste be properly treated, and at the same time, business opportunities and jobs can be created. Third, economic incentives should be offered to the public to win their support. Now, in Seoul, there are 4 waste-to-energy facilities, and to take the Mapo incinerator as an example, advanced technology is adopted, and the appearance blends well with the Han River, that of the Han River. And those living within 300 meters can get electricity tariff subsidies as compensation. And so, with regard to the construction of the Shakuchao incinerator, the government should make reference to the experience in South Korea and in Taiwan. That will help to get the support of the residents, and as a result, this council will be more willing to provide the funding. So these are my remarks.
Mr. Charles Mark, Mr. President, I also participated in that visit to South Korea. My major observation is that in South Korea, they discover the problem of waste disposal very early. In Hong Kong, we discussed, resolved, but did not act. Our landfills are saturated, of course. We visited the Metropolitan Council of Seoul. They pointed out to us that they adopt a stick and carrot approach. On the one hand, they legislate, and on the other hand, they provide incentives, they provide economic support and improve facilities. The eco-industries of South Korea benefited, creating economic development opportunities. And also, the producer responsibility scheme and other policies have provided science and technological opportunities for the industries. And there are also enhanced collaboration opportunities with Europe and America. So, introduced to us the waste levy and waste recovery systems. RSID was adopted in food waste centers. It's just like an octopus card. You use it and the garbage bin will be opened and your bag of food waste can be dumped into it. The machine will weigh the waste and a levy will be imposed in accordance with the weight. And everything will be uploaded to the server for all to see. The local government was of the view that it's not difficult to promote innovative industries. You should obtain support from the local councils and the residents. In Hong Kong, we're having a consultation exercise on municipal solid waste. I also discussed this with the Committee on Sustainable Development. They also support the state-of-the-art technology, including RSID, to levy charges. The latest and most appropriate technology should be used. This forms a very important part of Seoul's green policy, from machinery, manufacturing of machinery, handling of odor, and science and technology are all interrelated. In Yanchuan, the landfill was not what we imagined. Phase 1 of that landfill was already saturated and filled. And they got amount of 30 to 40 meter high, which would be turned into a golf course. And next year they'll have a major Asia-Pacific golf tournament. Hong Kong has adopted more or less the same technology as Seoul, but they're already turning waste into energy. Hong Kong has huge potential to use the waste gas from landfills as energy. Near Chung Kwan O landfill, there's this industrial estate which has a lot of digital companies, 12 big and small such companies. In recent years, planned digital centers will also use the waste gases from landfills as renewable energy. The government should facilitate such developments and support them so as to make full use of our resources. We also visited the Gongbei waste disposal plant, solely operated by the Seoul Metropolitan Council. Persons with disabilities and grassroots citizens were employed. 60% of the waste could be recycled and used. For example, they recycled part of the plastics and produced fuel from rubbish for power stations to use. The participation of the local Metropolitan Council was a very important factor, and Hong Kong should model on them. We also visited a Samsung major exhibition center. We visited the site, and we're particularly interested in the beam modeling technology and enterprising planning systems. In real time, they design and use the waste materials. Large quantities of templates and models were used. BMI is nothing new. It's just that the Hong Kong government has been partially using it only. It does not require comprehensive use of BMI. And in the construction industry, there are always observing the old practice. And a friend in South Korea told us that many years ago when they came to Hong Kong, they heard of BMI, but there were instructors, but no, there were apprentices, but no instructors. Starting from this year, the CIC had spent a great deal of effort in BMI training. I hope that the government will take the lead to use the technology, and more incentive should be given to the industries, the business community, to use the technology in real estate projects so that we won't lag behind others. The officials of South Korea repeatedly explained to us that their strategy was all economy related. There are subsidies and regulation of fees and charges. There are also public-private collaboration. They also did education and adopt a multi-pronged approach with years of legislation on construction waste, etc. They have attained success. How could they obtain support and acceptability from political parties, members of the public, and stakeholders? We see that that's pegged with the path of democratization in South Korea. Given the development of democratization in Hong Kong, we are really very worried. Thank you. Ms. Emily Lau, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I speak in support of Ms. Cyd HO's motion. I'd like to thank Ms. Cyd HO for leading us in this delegation on this duty visit to the Republic of Korea. I'm not a member of the panel, but I'd like to learn from the experience. This is not the first time we visited South Korea. Back then, Ms. Choi So-yuk was the chairman, and we visited Japan and South Korea. However, even after our return, we've not been able to do anything. That's really regrettable. This time is not our first visit. The Bureau Director and his colleagues accompanied us. I remember that last time Ms. Choi So-yuk's delegation also comprised environment officials. That's very good. We observed other people's experience and had sharing. But then after repeated observations, when we came back, we didn't know what we could do. We all sighed. But sighing is sighing. Wastes do not wait. Now the Bureau Director is facing all these wastes surrounding us. On that day, he had a meeting with the Shekucha residents. He said that the incinerator is nothing, it's just like fireworks display. Is it that fireworks display would be on every night, like in Disneyland? The residents asked. I think the government must let the public understand that a certain policy is acceptable. I think we should all make one step back. That is to have a compromise. Be it South Korea or Japan, their experience does not carry any magic. I think what we need to do is to change our mindset and culture. In South Korea, they're very concerned about their mindset. Earlier, we learned that the plastics here in Hong Kong were not recycled and reused. They're dumped in landfills. Every day, I spent a great deal of effort to segregate the plastics and place them in recycling bins. And then people say, wow, eventually they all go to the landfills. Every citizen is doing his part, but the government has let us down. Bureau Director and your colleagues, please work harder. Please do not waste this public aspiration of environmental protection. Mr. Woo Chi-wai mentioned something done in 1995 in South Korea. Yes, they're earlier than we. We also want to adopt policies and measures. As political parties said, well, they say rates already cover waste management. Are our rates excessive? And should we also collect rates from those with a very weak financial ability, I think we need to explain to the public that for those who are affordable, given the bags that you distribute to them, we'd like the public to accept that if you want to manage waste, you have to pay a price. If the economy is poor, however, society will take care of you. If the Bureau Director does not go out to explain this, then right from the beginning, people will be very much against your proposal. So please contact the public more. In Japan and South Korea, they got the incinerators only after 7 to 10 years of hard work. They told the local communities that in return they would get how many parks, how many community halls, would there be heated swimming pools, electricity tariff subsidies, water tariff subsidies, etc., etc. The government should not resist all these. I think in this council we all agree with you. Our colleagues, just like Mr. Martin Liao said, that the private sector and the government are all engaged in the recycling of food waste. But some people told us that, oh, that's not possible because there would be government business collusion. We will, of course, not tolerate government business collusion. But if we do it formally with transparency, we need to provide incentives and encouragement to the parties concerned so that the whole green industry can be successful. I think we need to explain all these to the public. The Bureau Director has to work harder. I don't think we can only learn these in South Korea. But when we're there, we learned what they're doing. In this Chinkai village, they had reinstatement and rehabilitation. But how many years did they spend on that? Back then, they had so many shops on both sides. Did they lose their business? What did they do? Their government discussed with them, assisted them, and subsidized them. Sometimes the government said that it's not appropriate to subsidize these parties. But you see, some people have been subsidized by the government to a huge extent. So are we placing our priorities incorrectly? I hope that the administration gets this message. Hong Kong people treasure our environment. We have to protect it. Yes, waste will be produced, but how should waste be handled? You should explain to them. If the economy is not good, we'll of course assist them. For those who can afford it, I believe members of the public are willing. It's just like food waste, we're willing to do it. In Tuen Mun, Mr. Albert Ho was pleased to hear that food waste would be treated. He called hundreds of kaifongs, but then the government said that there's no machine to do the work, and the kaifongs were dispersed. You tried to put forth something, but eventually proposals fell through. The Democratic Party and many LegCo members very much hope that you can do something in this regard, because we have no choice. We're lagging behind many other cities in the world. I hope that the Bureau Director and his team will work harder so that we can succeed in our work.
Ms. Claudia Mo.
I'm speaking in support of the motion, and I thank in particular Ms. Cyd HO, the panel chairman, for arranging this particular study tour. It was very meaningful, thoroughly meaningful, and to say the least, eye-opening. I was particularly impressed by how and what the Koreans do with their kitchen leftovers. The meticulous, particular way of separating food wastes, starting at the dining tables. Now that's something Hong Kong would take years and years to actually catch up with. Toothpicks, for one, the environmental chief would know, right? Our toothpicks were made of wood, and they're not supposed to get mixed with the food waste. But in Korea, toothpicks are made of sweet potato flour, so it's very safe to have them with your fish bones, your whatever rib bones, the bits of vegetables, etc. I mean, the things like that, we need to start at least with primary kids, telling them why we need to do such separations. And perhaps the kids could influence their parents, mums in particular. Now, this actual physical separation of unwanted waste from food waste at home levels, it's so impressive. It's just almost unthinkable to outsiders, people like us from Hong Kong. We tend to throw away things in a lump, everything in a lump, because what's the point, right? Plastics, newspapers, anything, well, whatever, in the same dustbin, because the government doesn't seem to care that much either. So that's the problem. It's not your personal problem. You're quite new on the job, but it's about time to actually start. If not education, propaganda, at least at the community level. And in Seoul, we learned that with the food waste, what do they do with their food waste? At the end of the day, they turn it into fertilizers for agricultural consumption, right? And I thought, oh gee, in Hong Kong, we haven't got much agricultural land left. So that's out for our use. And the second use, I was told, well, I was actually shown the end product, and that was dog food. Now, it sounds okay, but then this dog food, well, not apparently, it's true. It's for dog farms. Farms that actually farm dogs for eating. And I cringed at the thought, so it's irrelevant to Hong Kong either. But then back home, I learned that we could also do it in the form of fish food for feeding a little goldfish in tanks and things. So that's one thought. But then again, there's no government help, assistance, subvention in any particular way, it seems. But I have to inform this council, and I'm sure our environmental chief already knew about it, and that is we had an environmental panel meeting on Monday, and we had this public deputation, right? There was one particular merchant who approached me and said he actually makes food waste devices, those machines and things, apparatus and so on. And he thought we should start promoting that at least in Hong Kong. Well, fine, we do studies abroad and so on. We do tours and trips and so on. But then we do have it. And apparently, he claims he actually supplies his products to Seoul. And we met his company staff in Seoul and so on and so forth. And that's, it seems rather sort of odd that we could have started back home here instead of going all the way abroad to see what other people do. And I have to echo what Charles Mock, my colleague, said just now. Another reminder from this Korean tour is that we have to look at the trust, not just the cooperation, but the trust between the people and the government. The pure lack of trust in this city of ours at the moment, right? You're trying to charge for waste, and the amount of opposition you're going to face is going to be abundant. We wouldn't talk about collusion between businesses and the government. We would wish to see some actual cooperation. And one last thing, if I still have time, we were there in Seoul with the chief and his team and so on, and we were the LegCo team. I understand arrangements were made to help ensure that there's this separation of powers, that that's the executive and we're the legislative. But then everywhere, well, when we actually went out together, everywhere I couldn't help getting the feeling that the legislators were somehow treated as secondary visitors. And that's not quite right. We're supposed to be very separate powers. So personally, as I said, I appreciate the trip very much. But perhaps such experiences wouldn't need to be repeated. Thank you.
Mr. Tony Chair. President, handling municipal solid waste for any city is a major challenge. And this is a very important issue to our daily lives. Hong Kong needs landfills. At the same time, we should explore other possibilities. For example, can we use incineration to take the place of some of the landfills so as to reduce the demand, the reliance on landfills, and the adverse impacts posed by landfills? As for the relative percentages or proportions of different waste management approaches, I think the community should have an in-depth discussion. It takes time to come up with proper waste management systems. We need to handle a lot of waste on a daily basis. If we drastically cut the amount to handle through the landfilling, then and we don't have other alternatives, we're going to be a city besieged by waste. Although this is not a pressing issue that you are going to see tomorrow, for the new towns close to the landfills, what the people are concerned about are the odor and the environmental nuisance caused by the refuse collection vehicles. In the long term, we should no longer rely on landfills. There should be a comprehensive and environmentally friendly blueprint on waste management on the part of the government. I joined the delegation to Seoul in April. I wanted to understand the experience of Seoul in waste management, waste reduction, recycling, waste management facilities, promotion of waste reduction, and waste to energy programs. We met the Environment and Water Resources Committee of Seoul Metropolitan Council and other NGOs and organizations. We went to visit many resource facilities, second-hand goods, waste management facilities. We also went to Cheung Kee Chuan, and also we watched for ourselves how they operate the volume-based waste charging system. Back in the 80s, both Seoul and Hong Kong are tigers of Asia. The production of waste was at a similar level. At the time, Seoul government realized that they had to come up with a long-term strategy on waste management to satisfy future needs. And therefore, starting from 1992, they introduced a polluter pays principle in terms of waste charging. Within a few years, waste reduced to a great extent. At the same time, the waste reduction, recycling, and handling of food waste were implemented. So instead of building more waste management facilities, they try to reduce waste as best they can through a number of programs and through public education and publicity on the part of the government. They have achieved very good results, and the demand for landfills has dwindled. For example, in Seoul, the serviceable life of the landfills has been extended by 28 years. that is to 2044. We have only got a charging scheme on plastic bag in the pipeline, and we haven't actually implemented anything for food waste. We produce 4,000 organic waste on a daily basis, including 3,000 tons, more than 3,000 tons of food waste. Only 40% will be recycled, and most would go to the landfills, and we're not making the best use of such waste. Food waste recovery started in 1990s in Seoul. All restaurants and eateries are duty-bound to recover food waste. And ordinary citizens are also duty-bound to sort their waste, and food waste must be separated and collected by local governments. And they also have a carrot and stick approach. They prohibit direct dumping of food waste in the landfills, and at the same time, they promote the recovery of food waste with incentives. So the recovery rate has increased from 45% to 95% in 2009. So the results are most impressive. And the 4 incinerators in Seoul have got a resource recovery system, so they can turn waste to energy, and energy is made available to residents living nearby. They make the best use of everything. We do not have a lot of land. Land resources are scarce in Hong Kong. We should no longer rely on landfilling for waste management. We should learn from Korea, learn from the experience of reduction at source and the adoption of long-term strategy in waste management. To effectively reduce waste, we must do sorting at source and also waste charging at the same time. And also there should be more measures for recycling and for waste to energy recovery. There should be a multi-pronged approach. I think this is correct. This is sustainable in terms of waste management. So I submit.
Mr. Gary Chan. Thank you, Mr. President. It was an honor for me to join my colleagues on a duty visit to South Korea. And during this visit, we learned about a lot of experience on waste management and the South Korean government's policies and philosophy on waste management. As mentioned by Mr. Tony Chair, South Korea and Hong Kong used to be the 4 tigers of Asia. And we are facing many challenges on waste management. But if we look at the metropolitan circle of Seoul, the population is 3 times ours. However, the waste generation per capita rate is just slightly over 2 times. So I'd like to talk about a number of points that that can serve as our reference on reducing waste at source. As mentioned by members, all along, all we have been doing is tricolor bins, and on food waste treatment plant, we only heard about those plants in the pipelines. We only see small-scale food waste composters in local communities. As for organic waste treatment facilities, there should be more. A single one is not enough. The food waste generated in Hong Kong amounts to 3,500 tons per day. As for South Korea, they divide food waste into recyclables and non-recyclables. For these types of food waste, they have different mechanisms for treating them. Food wastes are separated so that pollution due to food waste can be minimized. Garbage bags disposed of by residents will not contain leachate or emanate odor. So if South Korean can do it, why can't we? We also visited different organizations in Hong Kong on food waste treatment. But basically, there are just two solutions. One is as food for fish, and the other is as fertilizers. Mr. Stephen Ho is not here, but we understand. It's really questionable how much the fishing industry can take up. Appetite, our appetite is inclined on the salty side, so it may not be suitable for use as fertilizers. The fertilizers generated from food waste must be treated with additives before they can be put to use. In South Korea, we went to a private resource recycling center in Songpa, the Songpa recycling center. They can recycle different types of food waste, and there is no wastage at all. Their odor management facilities are very good. We didn't find any bad smell at all. On the other hand, Hong Kong is lagging far behind. We have several food waste composters developed by the communities. However, we do have talents in finding out solutions to treat food waste, not only fish feed. They can become biofuel as well. I understand there is a small-scale operation in Eco Park, but it's questionable whether it is sufficient. So, back to my point, Mr. President. If the South Koreans can, why can't we? The second point is about waste reduction. Let's see how far South Koreans could go. On the domestic waste fee charging system, their government understand very well that the intention of the pay-as-you-throw scheme is to instill behavioral changes so that before people throw away the rubbish, they can reconsider whether some can be recycled and whether some can be separated. For prepaid garbage bags, they come in different sizes. They come in different types, domestic and commercial, and also bags for recyclables and non-recyclables. In Hong Kong, we are discussing MSW charging. However, it seems that we're not going all the way. We talked about administrative difficulties. We talked about different modes of accommodation, those living in rural areas and subdivided flats. Now, Secretary, if you don't have any determination in taking this forward, it's pointless to have rounds of consultation. According to surveys, the general public accept the idea of MSW charging. I have also conducted several surveys, and in general, over 50% support MSW charging. So it's become acceptable by the general public. The question now lies in how the charging should be implemented and how fairness can be achieved. In South Korea, they provide different kinds of prepaid garbage bags in implementing MSW charging. So if they can, why can't we? Another example is Toronto. The mayor of Toronto recently launched the waste charging scheme. Sometimes you see trucks on the road with loads of $100 banknotes on it. In fact, this is no exaggeration because the waste contained on the trucks actually contains valuable recyclables. So we're also one of the 4 tigers in Asia. We are also as advanced as them as far as development is concerned. So if South Korea can, why can't Hong Kong? Next, Mr. Chan Kin-po. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm a member of the delegation, and I had this opportunity to visit South Korea and learn about their waste management policy. It's it's really broadened my horizon. Well, they have comprehensive policies and facilities, and they helped people cultivate this habit. And on the contrary, why is our development lagging so far behind? In South Korea, waste management policies went through a very long process. They adopted a 4R strategy, including recovery, reuse, recycling, and turning waste into energy. And the waste generated reduced by 40%. In fact, we share a number of similar experiences, so we can draw reference from their experience. I think the most important point is to overcome local opposition and implement a waste reduction strategy, and also to promote waste recovery. In Hong Kong, on the development of treatment facilities and landfill extension, the administration faces a lot of opposition. The same actually happened in South Korea. In local communities, they opposed the construction of treatment plants and also the extension of landfills. Through the effort of South Korean government officials, this could be achieved because they have fully consulted the local communities. For example, on the treatment plant, the government officials fully consulted the public, and experts also explained the idea to the local community. And also, the plant is of a very good and innovative design, and is an open design that allows the public to observe the processes, and it builds a positive image. And also, compensation policies are also implemented. For example, subsidies for management fees and electricity tariff, and also the addition of community facilities to help improve the neighborhood. This shows the determination of that government in resolving this matter. Reasonable compensation is also used as an incentive. And recently, there is a plan to build an incinerator in Shekou Chao, and this plan faces local opposition. The administration also tried to negotiate with the community, but on the whole, the officials should learn from the overseas examples. And there are also operational difficulties and technical problems. We do not have this experience, so government officials should have a duty visit in South Korea and learn from them. And they also have state-of-the-art incinerators that emits pollution-free exhaust. And if we have modern facilities, this will build greater confidence in the public. And for South Korea, they also turned waste into energy, and the energy is transmitted for enjoyment by the local neighborhood, and this also serves as an example. The other point is about waste recycling. In Seoul, 63% of the recovered waste is incinerated, and 25% to 63% recycled, 25% to incinerators, and the remaining to landfill. And the government also provides loans for the recycling industry, and they also provide free advice for startup businesses. To reduce the use of landfill, they also promote the development of recycling industry. They also the green groups also hope to improve this percentage and boost this percentage to 80%. Whereas in Hong Kong, we are promoting the development of recycling industry. At present, 45% of the waste still goes to landfill. We think the government is still not committed enough, and the government's measures are not effective enough. If we are to increase the recovery rate to 50% by 2022 or 55%, there should be more assistance and to the recycling industry. And there are advantages in South Korea that we don't have. That is, their people are united and they are patriots. They are willing to sacrifice for the country, so they are willing to take ahead the initiative of waste reduction. And it's easier for their government to persuade their people. Whereas in Hong Kong, the situation is the opposite. I hope on waste reduction, we can all work together and stay united.
Mr. Kwok Wai Keung. Thank you, President. Well, it's half a year already. I didn't even realize it. It was in April that we went to South Korea. We're now in December. In the past 6 months or so, it seems that nothing much happened in Hong Kong except of this new slogan about this waste throw creature. Now, I've moved a motion this year asking the administration to implement its waste management strategy as soon as possible. Apart from promoting reduction of waste at source, we must also promote the green industries in Hong Kong and create more jobs. I already said in my motion debate that the administration should plow in resources heavily in the green industry for this industry to thrive. But the government refuses to plow in resources, so the green industry remains in a state of stalemate. Now, apart from that, we need to have an effective waste management policy. South Korea is among the top 2 countries in Asia doing very well in waste management. Why? Because they are detailed in what they do and they adopt a comprehensive approach. Because they want to collect, to recycle food waste. Even toothpicks are made of starch that is biodegradable. So that shows how determined they are. But in Hong Kong, can we get that far? We can see that the Environment Bureau, having looked at the South Korean experience, they're just learning some of what they're doing, but not all. They're learning from them in charging for waste disposal, but then they seem to have turned a blind eye to the other initiatives adopted by South Korea. Now, food waste is a serious problem in Hong Kong. It's the same in South Korea. So there are various incentive schemes to reduce the amount of side dishes and so on. And they've also brought in food waste charging scheme. In Seoul, Kam Chuan Ku, there is a receptacle like drinks dispenser. There's a card reader. You just hit your card there, and then the receptacle will open, and then you could just put your food waste there, and you'll be charged for it. So they do a very thorough job there. In Hong Kong, every day there's 3,600 tons of food waste that ends up in a landfill. That is the equivalent of 300 double-decker buses. That's the weight of that. So this is worrying, because we're all saying that we want to make the most of what we have, but then we are throwing away a lot of food. We have the Food Wise campaign now, and then people are encouraged not to be wasteful. But in terms of the food waste supporting policy, there's nothing. The first food waste management facilities will only be completed in 2015 at the earliest. Now, apart from promoting the awareness to reduce food waste, what more can we do? Well, in public housing estates, shouldn't we have pilot schemes there? Because there's the public space, and we have concentration of population. That will be a good place to test measures on reducing waste, but that we have heard nothing about that. On the waste recycling system in South Korea, there are 5 to 6 types of recyclable waste: paper, bottles, aluminum cans, metals, or plastics. That's the recyclable waste from domestic households. And then there will be a re-separation of waste at the separation center. And then some of the separated waste will be sent to recyclers for recycling, and some will be exported. For South Korean manufacturers, they have the responsibility to recycle their waste. If not, there's a law requiring them to hire a contractor to recycle waste, commercial waste generated from their production. But do we have that in Hong Kong? Now, in Hong Kong, we just try to target the domestic household. But what about the business sector? What are we doing about them? Now, in South Korea, they have stringent legislation on overpackaging. But here in Hong Kong, say during Chinese New Year, we go and visit people with presents. The packaging is excessive, but there's still no regulation. As for disposable utensils for takeaway food, some members commented on it. I'm not going to repeat the point. Well, in South Korea, the government has put in a lot of resources in recycling. They grant land for the construction of plants, and then the government subsidizes day-to-day operating costs. But then in Hong Kong, when it comes to separation of waste, we just have the a blue receptacle for paper and also a receptacle for plastic and so on. But because recycled materials is worth so little, nobody is interested. So are we going to go for a sustainable approach, or are we still going to put the economy first in our waste management strategy? On the mainland, they have now a campaign to make sure that recycled waste is clean and is actually can be reused. Can we set up a similar system in Hong Kong? Now, to sort waste that's labor intensive and also resources intensive. So how much is the government willing to invest in this exercise? Because this exercise could help us reduce waste. At the same time, we could create more jobs for the low-income groups, especially for the unskilled workers. That would respond to the demands of part of the demands of the FTU. Now we can finally, I like to say this. People in South Korea have got into the good habit. There's encouragement for them to reuse second-hand goods. When can we learn from them? There, thank you. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Mr. President, I must confess, when it comes to green awareness and knowledge, of course, I do not know as much as Mr. Wong, the Secretary. Now today here we're talking about environmental protection here. I think that's an irony, because our council is one of the reasons leading to the structural problem. We monitor the government could ignore us, or the government could just order their voting machine to block results they don't want to see. I must confess, I'm one of the culprits involved in this stalemate. But, well, how do we describe this issue? Now, the Secretary is asking for our votes to extend landfill. Otherwise, garbage will be at our doorstep. Well, unfortunately, I can't give you my vote, even though I admire you saying that. As I said, you need to give us a roadmap and a timetable. Now, we don't even know when C.Y. Leung might step down. Maybe in 2 months or so, this government will be disintegrated. But at least you have to tell us. Instead, no, you just ask us for your votes first. No, Secretary, you really are not a political animal. You should tell us. Within your term, if the SAR government could not come up with a roadmap and a timetable, then you can't really face the people of Hong Kong. If you dare to, if you're willing to do that, then you get my vote to support your landfill proposal. No, but here, as long as there are enough votes, you don't care. And after your proposal is passed, things still remain the same as they are. And if another 10 years, because I'm still around, I'm forced to become a legislator for another 10 years, I'm maybe 70, maybe I would just have to say, sorry, we still couldn't get the government to do anything. There's no recycling, no separation of source or whatever. It could happen. President, I think the Secretary has to make a pledge, a simple pledge on behalf of the government. There's no point talking about the South Korean duty visit. Okay, we can look at the experience, but we don't get anywhere. It's a waste of time. You went there and said, oh, they're doing a great job. In Hong Kong, we can't do it. But why can't you do it in Hong Kong? You can do so with public housing estates, but then you sell the some of the space to link grid. And what about the free color receptacles? You could also do something about it. Of course, if you have sold $10, $20 billion of asset to link grid, that's why you can't do it at the public housing estates. And there's the government policy to let consortia take control of public space. Of course, it's going to be a problem. For example, Causeway Bay, I don't remember what's that place. You could put seven different receptacles there, but they say no. This is my space. You can't block my space. So the government is not able to take any action. It's not about whether the government knows what to do. So it just won't do anything. Oh, I think you were brought in by CY Leung. Obviously, I'm not going to discriminate against you. But has he instructed you what to do? Did he give you any tips? When Leung Kwok-hong criticizes you, can you take out something out of your sleeves to say, okay, we're going to spend $10 billion. We'll have the land, we have the people, and whatever. You can't keep saying that, well, I'm really keen to do something, but I don't have the land, I don't have the people, whatever. That's what CY Leung always said. If that's the case, he shouldn't bother running for the post of CE. Now, you came in and you brought Christine Low to come and lobby us. You've got a strong team, but still you couldn't convince me. You have to tell us there will be sorting, recycling, reuse, and whatever. You have to tell us that. Before I was a LegCo member, every year I came to protest against the budget and whatever. And there was this green scheme that by Hon Cyd HO that could have created 100,000 jobs. But Hon Cyd HO stepped down, and then Donald Tsang also fell in disgrace. Now, Donald Tsang only cares about this fluorescent or this compact fluorescent lamp scheme to benefit his in-laws. So what do you expect? Now, you've tried to lobby me for 3 months. I told you I wouldn't give you my vote. Then you didn't come back to me again. Now, you don't have to be accountable to me. You have to be accountable to yourself. You have to be accountable to CY Leung. CY Leung is incompetent. Even if you want to defend your boss, you have to say this. But not much later, you're going to come up with the landfill proposal, and you just want us to endorse it. You know, this council really, we are really nothing. You don't even have to deceive us, and we'll succumb to you. Now, if you come back later with more proposals, what can you trade with us? With a few more duty visits? Are you going to trade votes with duty visits? I think it's pathetic. There's no point talking about it. Are you going to take any action? I've never heard that a government couldn't get things done if it's really determined to do so. Now, if you don't do it, I can tell you there's no way I could support the landfill proposals. Now, all those members who've spoken so eloquently, listen up. If you don't have a roadmap, if you don't have a timetable, no way. There's no discussion. That's the point of this debate. It's not about what's going on in South Korea and so on. You have to answer me. Would there be a roadmap and timetable, and did CY Leung give you any instructions? If not, tell him to step down. President, if there's nothing from him, tell him to step down. He should be sent to the landfill.
Miss Elizabeth Pott, President, I was really glad to be able to join the duty visit to the Republic of Korea. LegCo members and the Environment Bureau colleagues joined the visit. So they started changing their policies in 1988 because of the Olympic Games, and then in 1995 they had new policies, and in fact 60% of their household waste has been reduced. In 2011, the per capita household waste was 0.9 kg, but in the US it was 2 kg. In Hong Kong, the figure was also higher than that of South Korea. But then in South Korea, they still face some challenges. For example, food waste. It was only in June this year that they started implementing the legislation on charging for the treatment of food waste, and the legislation, in fact, was controversial. And we can, of course, I think in Hong Kong we should learn from the South Korean experience. In South Korea, I think they've achieved a great deal in terms of their waste management policies. Now, in fact, Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, and other countries in the region have been promoting environmental protection, and they have done a lot to reduce waste. But then in Hong Kong, we haven't made much progress in the past decade or so, and most of our waste goes to our landfills, and so we are really lagging far behind neighboring cities, and we must try to catch up. In South Korea, I think they are successful because the government is committed and is bold, and it is aware of the waste problem, and it is able to unite the people. And the people are willing to work together towards the objective of reducing waste. And also, the South Korean government has adopted the right attitude in communicating with the people. It is committed, it has the determination, and I think Hong Kong should really learn from South Korea. During the visit, we went to a number of places, and I would like to give a few examples. Went to Kangpei, and there was the waste plastic recovery and separation plant. Government invested in it. Government provided the site. It was commissioned in 2007, and the waste plastic sold could fund 60% of the operating cost. And then the considering 120 staff members, the salaries were paid by the local government, and the recycling rate was 85%. In fact, we have been saying that the government should subsidize waste recovery, separation, and recycling. In fact, this is these are the different components in a chain, and all these components are essential. But then concerning separation, further separation, I think government has not done enough. And so I think the Hong Kong government should really learn from the South Korean government. Now, President, in fact, different countries face different challenges when they promote green policies. In South Korea, they have been doing a very good job in respect of civic education. People have been educated to love their own country and to love their own culture. And so the people do support policies and measures which are beneficial to the nation and to the country. But of course, when government measures affect the interests of individuals, there are still objections. But then the South Korean government has done a lot to explain government policies to those affected, and then support and subsidies are provided to the people concerned, and these subsidies and assistance are the things that the people really want and need. we visited the Seoul Municipal Council, and the council members told us that it was not at all easy to implement a comprehensive waste management strategy. In fact, initially the people did not support the idea of having waste treatment facilities near their homes. But then the municipal government was willing to continue discussions with stakeholders. Adequate time was reserved for consultation. There were numerous public hearings and briefings. The government was humble enough to listen to the views of the people in order to allay the concerns of the people on incinerators. Opinion leaders were sent to overseas visits, and then experts were sent to explain to the people that waste to energy facilities were safe. And there were also measures implemented by the government to suit local needs. For example, to compensate those who were affected by incinerators, they will be given tailor-made compensation. For example, free shuttle bus services, subsidies on heating charges, management fees, and so on and so forth. In Hong Kong, we have a similar problem. We have opposition from the people, and yet the government is unwilling to discuss compensation with those to be affected. And I think the Hong Kong government must learn from the South Korean government. In fact, there are many other successful experiences in Seoul that we can learn from. Waste can generate problems, but can also generate opportunities. In Seoul, waste treatment means new sites, new employment opportunities, new industries, and a new culture. And I think these are directions that we should explore and pursue further. Thank you. Mr. Vincent Fang, President. I was also a member of the delegation. I was greatly impressed because the South Korean government was far-sighted in formulating long-term policies. And the government attaches importance to public education. And there is also mutual monitoring. In 1998, after the Asian financial turmoil, South Korea has developed into a strong nation in terms of innovation and technology. I want to comment on 2 points, President. First of all, the government's waste management strategy, and second, the government's support in waste management measures. Now, concerning waste treatment, I have in this council repeatedly said 2 things. First of all, imposing a levy is not the best way to nurture environmental awareness. And second, waste is precious. There is gold, so to speak, in waste, and so we should promote waste recovery and recycling. So people may say, oh, there are different types of levies in South Korea. Levy on food waste, household waste, and also the plastic shopping bag levy. But then in South Korea, they do not just impose a levy. In Hong Kong, we just impose levies. In South Korea, they have other support measures. For example, concerning the plastic bag levy, plastic bags issued by hawkers and small shops are colored bags. Those are bags made of recycled material, and consumers do not need to pay a levy. So that would be environmentally friendly, and that would be beneficial to the operators and to the people. It's true that the South Korean government imposes a waste treatment fees on households, but then the South Korean government collects recyclable waste free of charge. And so we can see that the government encourages people to recycle waste. Now, the local government collects the recyclable waste free of charge, and then the recyclable waste is sent to treatment centers for further separation and treatment. And some of the materials, the recycled materials are taken on by local manufacturers, some are for export. In Hong Kong, we are merely trying to adopt the volume-based waste fee system adopted in South Korea in 1995. The South Korean government knows very well that imposing a levy alone will not help reduce waste, and that's why in 2005 they have the volume-based waste-free system and the collection of recyclable waste free of charge. So recyclable waste is collected by the government free of charge. But in Hong Kong, we impose a charge on everything. This morning, we discussed C&D waste, that's fee charging, and then electronic products fee charging, glass bottles free charging, plastic bags free charging, household or domestic waste fee charging. So we charge fees on everything. And then for waste in our waste separation bins, it may ultimately end up in our landfills. And then for C&D materials, when you deposit C&D materials, a fee has to be paid, and people have to, and the government has to spend money extending the landfills. But we can see that in South Korea, 95% of C&D waste is recovered and recycled. And then food waste, which gives out an odor. Now, in order to get support for the Chung Kwan O landfill extension, the government said that the landfill would not accept food waste. So where would the food waste go? To other landfills. I asked the secretary whether the government should expedite the recovery and recycling of food waste. And the reply I got was, it was impossible to construct huge quantities of food waste treatment facilities in the short term. All right, large quantities, not possible. What about small quantities? Nothing has been done. In South Korea, they really practice waste reduction at source. They do not merely rely on punitive means to scare people off. In order to reduce waste, the South Korean government provides financial support for the recycling industries. Recyclers are offered long-term, low-interest loans. Recycling facilities and technologies are being developed by the government, and experts are deployed to provide advisory service for these recyclers, so that people can start up their business and continue their business. The government also supports the development of green products and the recycling industries. President, now, both LegCo and the government chose the best destination for a visit. We chose the destination because we felt that there were a lot of things that we can learn from it. South Korea, especially Seoul, is similar to Hong Kong in many ways. They've accumulated many years of experience. We should learn from them. We should not repeat mistakes that have been made. So, in the visit, we showed great appreciation for the policies adopted in South Korea. And I hope that the government can implement effective policies for Hong Kong. Thank you.
Dr. Kwokaki. Mr. President, first of all, I have to thank our LegCo colleagues for spending a great deal of time to prepare for this duty visit to South Korea. They observed how they reduce wastes at source and how they adopt a very positive and active attitude in handling wastes. Looking at ourselves, I'm very disappointed. Bureau Director, you and your team, including your Undersecretary and Administrative Assistant, we had high hopes of them. However, in the past 1 odd years, what homework did you hand in to us? You continuously spoke, the last term of the SARG did not implement certain policies. For example, those related to landfills. Nothing was done about incinerators. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do all these. I don't think there's just one single method to handle wastes. I believe no matter how recycling is improved and advanced, some waste will have to be dumped in landfills and incinerated also. I quite agree with Mr. Vincent Fang, who represents the business sector. Yet he did not view the issue purely from a business point of view. He's not totally against a levy system, but can a levy solve everything? What happens in South Korea? We're talking about concepts about food waste. We're only discussing what methods should be adopted to resolve food waste. They are already weighing food waste by way of electronic balancers in weighing the food waste in households and eateries. They admitted that the whole society had to pay a heavy price. But what's our situation now? $10 billion. Very soon they'll submit a funding application to us. For Two Moon residents, they've disregarded the views of the Two Moon residents. Still, the administration would like to come to apply for $10 billion. And then $30 billion more for incineration. How much we invest per annum in landfills? About 60 billion, or rather $600 million per year. However, all these are negative measures. I don't quite see that many positive initiatives. If you read this report from the study tour to South Korea, you feel very worried. We're only handling a very small quantity of our kitchen or food wastes. It will take us 10 more years to resolve the whole problem. So we cannot set our minds at ease. In the LegCo, we did ask whether we can turn this into an opportunity, be it business opportunity or job opportunity, particularly for the disadvantaged, for those districts with employment difficulties like Northwest NT, Tin Shui Wai, and so forth. And for the persons with disabilities and job seekers, we'd like to do more for them. How much has the government done? In the Eco Park, at the moment, not much has been done. They are only handling a very small percentage of our wastes. Very often the government hypnotizes itself, saying that it's recycling 40 to 50% of our wastes. Frankly speaking, some of the wastes go through the recyclers, through the recycling bins, but eventually end up in our landfills. They just blindly make up figures. We have to pay a price. It may not be Hong Kong paying the price. We can bring waste to the mainland to dismantle them. Then our compatriots on the mainland will be the victims. In the end, it's just like cadmium. They come from environmental pollution, particularly electronic pollution, intoxicating the mainland. Sooner or later, our descendants will have to bear the brunt. I don't want us to waste our experience in South Korea. Well, the Bureau Director is presenting this 10-year blueprint. I don't think it will end up with anything. We cannot explain to our future generations. We need a more proactive and enterprising approach. It's not true that we disagree to the imposition of a levy, but be it resources or money, they should be plowed back to waste management. You impose a levy on plastic bags, but for the proceeds collected, will you plow them back to waste management? The government is setting up another head to collect resources. But if we do not have positive and enterprising approaches, we'll only be deceiving ourselves. The government will continue to hypnotize itself. I very much hope that Ms. Cyd HO and her colleagues' visit will not be wasted. Otherwise, the government may just do something superficial. They'll discuss with us. But for landfills and incinerators, please give us the money, even if we promise you we'll only be harming you. Mr. Lee Chok-yan. Mr. President, just look at the number of members of this delegation to South Korea. It indicates that the LegCo is very concerned about this issue. Now, after this visit, we all feel that the visit is very much a worthwhile reference for us. When they come back, how much experience will be taken on board by the administration? In Hong Kong, we always discuss this, but what about implementation? The government has performed poorly with implementation. Bureau Director, you've been resorting to poor tactics in implementation. All right, if implementation is not good enough, then you come and ask for the creation of a post. You tell us you need a person to do it. And then the following day, you want a consultant to compile a study report. If you use these tactics too frequently, we'll all laugh. And we'll be back to square one. So you attain nothing. And after doing all these, you ask us to support landfills. You submit a paper to the Finance Committee for expanding the landfills. Oh, you say, Lee Chok-yan, don't describe us as such poor guys. Please, we are sincere. Well, we don't just want sincerity. We want comprehensive planning. And we would like to know the details of every part of your strategy. The other day in the Environmental Affairs panel, you just told me one thing. You said you would like to have a person to compile a consultancy report, and then you would set up a fund. Oh, you're already setting up a fund. You'll have small pilot schemes. Well, under those funds, you've been conducting experiments for 5 to 6 years, and still you are saying the same thing is unacceptable. All right, and then you shift our attention. You say this time it will be all right. The most important thing is that we can impose a levy. Then things will be all right. And you shift our attention to the levy. At the moment, the Labour Party is not looking at whether or not we should impose a levy. We're looking at the whole system. For South Korea, you have a table here. This table is very easy to understand. Whole system, municipal waste should be segregated. 3 categories: food waste, non-recyclable wastes. Well, what does this mean? You think about it. Recyclable wastes. So 3 categories. The greatest difficulty lies with the middle one here. So 3 categories: food waste, facilities, fertilizers, and so forth, and non-recyclable wastes handled by incineration. Failing incineration, they go to landfills. So for recycling waste, they go to the segregation center and become recycled products. So that's the whole flow. But most importantly, before that, you have to reduce waste. the government fails to tell us the details of handling all wastes. Municipal waste, incineration, landfilling, use as fertilizers, recycling and reuse. We only see landfilling at the moment. Well, what you have already done, don't repeat them. We are talking about those things that you fail to do. In the Environmental Affairs panel, we told you, Bureau Director, if you can't resolve food waste, you will have problems. That's what we learned in South Korea. If you do not segregate the food waste, other wastes cannot be segregated. So you have to be able to segregate food waste. Well, I can guess what your difficulty lies. That is, you cannot resolve food waste. And whenever we discuss food waste with you, you told us you're working on plastics and glass. But food wastes are crucial. If you cannot resolve them, things won't work. So, for the whole system, if you are to impose a levy, you must give people a way out. You're willing to segregate the waste. If you are willing to segregate the wastes, you don't need to pay a levy. Rather, you receive a reward. Say you receive coupons in exchange for money. Of course, not in supermarkets, but they can exchange for daily commodities, but not patronizing the conglomerates. Anyway, they have to segregate the waste first, and then there'll be only two categories of waste, wet and dry waste. For the dry waste, you have another recycling vehicle to collect them. And they'll be sent to segregation centers. Food waste will go elsewhere. The segregation center will segregate the other waste. You can do it by automation, that is by machines. You don't need to do it manually nowadays. Food waste may go to refuse collection vehicles. And then you have to do public education. You have to educate and encourage people to do segregation. Then you need to do community work and publicity work. You have to educate the people. Then you can create jobs in terms of segregation and also on the food waste side. And recycling and reuse will also create jobs. So it will be a whole chain of action. Will that be feasible? Why not feasible? So we resolve all these before talking about landfilling and imposition of a levy. Thank you.
Dr. Kenneth Chan, thank you, President. I have a question for the Secretary. Let's say you have a term of 5 years. When your term is completed, what do you want to leave as your achievement, your legacy, so that future generations of Hong Kong citizens will remember you by? Everyone in public office, including you, when you enter this hot kitchen, this administration, you must have a little bit of sense of responsibility. So what is it? If you listen to members who have spoken in this debate, you would know that to some extent that what we want is not just a study tour to learn from them, to have some discussion, to learn from their experience, and then to share the experience with people here. There's no need to do so much things. And you may want to ask that in March we are going to visit Europe to see their incinerators. We have all these duty visits, studies, and going to all these countries to learn from the experience. So, the Secretary, what do you want to leave to the community after you go? Do you want to tell people that in terms of handling of municipal solid waste, compared with your predecessors, Sarah Liu and Edward Yao, you have, compared with them, a more comprehensive plan. It's not just the blueprint that you have published, 10 to 20 pages of blueprint. You actually have got something that can be implemented, and there are actual indicators and parameters that you can use to convince the public to go down the route you have planned. We've been told by the administrations that there is a three-pronged approach: incineration, the recycling, and landfills. None of that can be dispensed with. And that's the three ways to handle municipal solid waste. Many members and green groups have responded by saying that, well, we know that, but how to go about it? Do you have any indicator for recycling? The blueprint talks about a target of 60%. We are now at the level of 50%, and Secretary, you talk about 55%. During the Sarah Liu era, where actually I asked you this question at a panel meeting, it seems that you are lagging behind her indicator or her objective by 7 years. Your blueprints, according to you, is that the ultimate aim is not to go for high recycling rate. In some countries, it's just 20 to 30%. The ultimate aim is to reduce the amount of waste handled at the end process. And we are going after an objective of reducing the waste that we have to handle by 40%. And the promotion of recycling aims at reducing the waste to be disposed in our landfills. Well, let's do reduction of waste. That's good. Can we further improve on our recycling rates, the capacity of the recycling industry, so that we can create business opportunities for the industry and for our people? Well, waste can be profitable. Waste can generate opportunities. We're not talking about some sort of long-term objective. It's being done elsewhere in other countries. Now we seem to be talking about lofty but rather improbable objectives. We are very clumsy in terms of food waste handling. Many restaurants and consumers as well create a lot of food waste. I once asked the restaurant not to give me a plastic bag to hold my cold drink. The restaurant insisted on giving me one because there was a little bit of liquid that would make it dirty. We may appeal to restaurants to be conscientious businesses. We ask them to do something to help save the earth. Well, it's just some sort of PR stunt, not sustainable. It just gives you a brief moment of feeling good, and that someone has done something good. But we cannot rely on such good deeds for our future. You must have a comprehensive philosophy. We have to be focused. Let's say we have to be led by you. You must have the ability to lead, the ability to implement. Well, it's important to it's difficult to earn people's trust, especially in your turn. The Bills Committee scrutinizing the levy on plastic bags is an example. Even Mr. Wong Ting Kwong, a pro-establishment member, had reservation, and he said it was very difficult for him to support you. because you failed to give us the vision, and also how other parts of your plan would fit in to reduce waste at source. But this is a book on Korea, 101 ways to handle food waste from farms to restaurants, from dining tables. Hong Kong needs to do more. Mr. Albert Chan, President, every time I read a report of a duty visit like this one, it's really emotional for me. The first time I took part in such a visit was when I was a member of the Urban Council. I was not a electrical member. We went and we came back and compiled a report. And we were as surprised as Mr. Donald Trump when he paid his visit a few years ago. And in that, Japan had very good incinerators. The incinerators can generate electricity that is very environmentally friendly. We went in 1998, we submitted a report. And also the electrical also visited many other places in the 80s. And they are similar with this report for the visit to Seoul, especially in respect of from waste to energy, and also promotion of recycling, the recycling industry. In 2001, it's $1.7 billion. 2009 is 21 billion. So we talk about the same things in the 80s. That was during the period when the colonial rule was drawing to a close, and the willpower, the will to govern was waning. We kept talking about the same issues. From 1.7 billion to 7 billion in 2009. And before 2001, many people in Hong Kong advocated the same things. But the government, including the SAR government, did not handle the issues, or acted very slowly, or was very disorganized, ineffective, inefficient. Every time when we visit another country, even places which were considered backward, and they have moved forward so fast, and we are still lagging behind and moving so slowly. So what has our government been doing? When it comes to environmental protection or improvement to our living environment, when it comes to turning waste to energy and reduction of waste, all these point to one problem: the lack of a will to properly govern Hong Kong. Whatever the central authorities want, you just follow the orders. You don't pay sufficient attention to things that matter to Hong Kong: jobs, opportunities, and so on and so forth. You only act quickly to transfer benefits. People who back you behind the scene. You do environmental protection by transferring benefits to people that backed the members here. You spend tens of billions of dollars to subsidize the purchase of new vehicles. But other things are ignored. And before Donald Trump stepped down, he suddenly discovered that incinerators in Japan were so good. His attention was focused on having luxurious tours with rich people in His conscience was blocked by the wine and good food. So there was no interest to govern. There was no willpower to govern. And there are obstacles. I don't rule out the possibility that these obstacles have been erected by civil servants. When I talk to some directors of bureaus, I realize that some were very keen to take things forward, but other civil servants, including AOs, were reluctant to make changes. And therefore, taking things forward was very difficult. And these people just don't want to face the challenges. In other countries or cities, when they have a newly elected leader or mayor, they would move things forward. As politicians, they promote recycling industries as part of their manifesto, but not in Hong Kong. Earlier on, I had a quarrel and an argument with Mr. Albert Yao. I wanted to have something done, but he was formerly an AO. He didn't want to do anything active. He was the secretary only for a few years. There was no passion. Promotion of the recycling industry can only be done with passion. It's just like Mr. 689. He just followed faithfully the orders issued by the Chinese Communist Party. So he would spare no effort in cracking down on our freedoms. And if we want him to promote environmental protection, he would not move a bit, just like many other civil servants. So there must be a political mandate, and also there must be support from civil servants in order to be successful.
Mr. Ng Lam Sing, thank you, President. We don't need to have too much refuse or garbage talk. Well, even though I was not a member on the delegation to South Korea, but then I also believe that we should be able to achieve a value for money result in conducting this duty visit. With regard to this duty visit to South Korea on their waste disposal facilities, and they try their best to collect and reuse and recycle waste. Their achievement has been remarkable, and that was very impressive. And for waste management, is the direction taken by all the major cities in the world, and in Seoul, amongst the Asian cities, in terms of city development and also the habit of their citizens, I think they are very close to our lifestyle. That's why for the relevant policies and strategies, there is a lot for us to learn from them. Looking back at Hong Kong, well, our economy has taken off, and the general household has become more well off. But then, in terms of our waste production rate, when compared to other cities in the world, in terms of domestic waste, the per person production in Tokyo is 0.77 kg, and in Taipei is even less. And in Hong Kong, we are producing 1.3 kilogram per person per day, and also over 52% of our waste has to go to the landfills, and every day we are talking about 130,000 tons of waste being transported to the 3 landfills. When compared to other cities in Japan, 79% would go for incineration, and in Singapore it's 51%. For incineration, 1% is landfill, and in Taiwan, 46% incineration, 27% landfill, and in South Korea, 25% incineration and 75% landfilling. So it can show that Hong Kong people's awareness leaves something to be desired. We are lagging behind. We are actually lagging behind our Asian neighbors. And the Environment Bureau and the EPD have set up in the relevant document that comparatively speaking, Hong Kong has a scarcity of land, and therefore what we have been doing is not in our interest. That's why we have to take timely action to change the current practice. So this is something that everybody in Hong Kong should be concerned about, and we all have to be held responsible for that. As to what we are going to do, well, this year, the Environment Bureau published this Hong Kong Blueprint for Sustainable Use of Resources 2013 to 2022. The vision is not bad. In fact, South Korea and Taipei have gone ahead at least 20 years ahead of us. That's why there is no time to be wasted, and we have to introduce this waste fee or charging scheme so that reasonable measures will be introduced. And then for food waste, we need to have the facilities. We also have to make it feasible and popularize it. And thirdly, we also have to press ahead with incineration so that we can turn waste into energy. With regard to global climatic change, that has meant that proper disposal of waste has become one of the major tasks of all of us, because it's going to affect many generations to come. And if you look at the state of technology, and also if you look at the current level of economic development in Hong Kong, the more advanced incineration technology, and also to develop our eco park, to develop our recycling industry, there should be a lot of room for development, so long as we can enhance public awareness, so long as we can provide some boost to the recycling industry. I believe that there is a lot that can be done. And while I try to get a liberal studies teacher to write an article on waste disposal, and he cited an example which is also very enlightening. And I quote that in Taipei, residents would take the initiative to recycle waste, and we would be surprised at what they are prepared to do. Well, just to deal with a carton drink, they would try to compress the carton, and also the straw and also the packaging would also be sorted, and they would also be put into different collection bins, and very few people would be able to understand that, let alone doing it themselves. And also for food waste recollection and recycling, they also sort it out, and they would also be using that as animal feed for pigs, and also for waste that could be used for composting. They would also take the initiative to sort it, and that is something that is lacking among Hong Kong people. Mr. President, in order to translate our blueprint into action, I think resources and talents would be very important. The support of the business sector would also be very important. Public education and also the building of consensus and all community participation would also be very important. I hope that this is not going to become something that would just remain at discussion stage. The whole community should be involved. And I would also like to see a green Hong Kong with the efforts of the entire community that would be sustainable. Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak? If not, then I'll call upon the Secretary for the Environment to respond. President, once again, I'd like to thank Ms. Cyd HO for moving the motion. I'm also grateful to all the members who have spoken, and I'll be responding in several respects. First, on overall planning. First of all, I'd like to talk about the importance of a consolidated strategy. Many members have touched on that. In May this year, the administration published the 10-year blueprint for sustainable use of resources in Hong Kong, analyzing the challenges and opportunities in waste disposal in Hong Kong. We have set out the overall strategy, the specific targets, and also the policy initiatives, and also the timetable for action for waste management for the next 10 years. It's a comprehensive approach to deal with the crisis that might be created by waste. The most important thing is to allow the public to understand the full picture, and they will also understand the constraints, the opportunities encountered by the administration, and they will also have a better understanding of the reason and the purpose in introducing different measures by the administration. That will also portray the responsibilities and roles to be played by the administration, this council, private sector, and the individuals. During the past 2 months or so, I've been visiting different district councils to brief them on the blueprint so that I'd be able to enhance their understanding of the blueprint. I'll be going into the community to explain the details to them. With these meetings with the district councillors and representatives, I am even more impressed that with a comprehensive strategy, roadmap and timetable, it would enable us to better mobilize the community so that we can work together to achieve the objective of having 40% of waste reduction, and that would also enable the public to better understand that they have a duty to be involved, and then our blueprint will succeed. There is something that I'd like to clarify first. Just now, some members said that in South Korea, well, they have over 90% of waste recycling rate. That's very impressive. And they've also noted that in Hong Kong, in terms of construction waste, the recycling rate is comparable, is over 90%. And our landfills have also been collecting leachate and leachate gas, and we have been turning that into energy. So we've been doing very much the same thing, and therefore that's something that we can share. And we are also attaching a lot of importance to reducing or reduction at source. And some members have also touched on that. And during our visit to South Korea, what we were most impressed about was when the local officials told us that for municipal solid waste, they introduced this volume-based waste fee system is the most important and effective waste reduction policy. By imposing charge on the basis of volume, it not just changed the behavior of the citizens, it also promoted the development of the recycling industry as well as other support facilities. But then the experience of South Korea has also shown that this initiative would have a lot to do with the daily life of every citizen, and without proper planning and careful planning, that would give rise to some problems. That's why we also understand that this is very important. That's why last year we summarized the outcome of the first stage of public engagement exercise. We understand that the mainstream public opinion is very supportive of this. That's why we have invited the Council on Sustainable Development to look at how we can implement the MSW quantity-based system. And the second stage of PEE is being launched, and we are discussing with all the stakeholders and the community on the charging mechanism, the scope, the fee level, and also how we can enhance waste recovery. So these are the four main areas under the scheme that we have to work on before we can come up with a pragmatic and practicable package. Just now, some members also talk about how we can offer resistance to the disadvantaged groups in order to ease their burden, so that in the process of introducing this, we would be able to make sure that we can buy them in. And that is also a very important subject. And I also hope that you can give us your views. I also hope that the public can also grasp the opportunity to give us specific comments. The consultation will last until the 24th of January 2014. On the other hand, we are also making preparation for a pilot scheme to be launched on the charging scheme, and at different residential developments, we're going to carry out on the ground trials in order to accumulate experience to further improve the scheme. Of course, we would agree with members that between now and the actual implementation of the pilot scheme, we will have to step up our efforts in putting in place a support network, and then we'll be giving you further details in due course. And in South Korea, in terms of producer responsibility scheme, they've also got this very proactive system in place. Now we have got the environmental levy scheme on plastic shopping bag, And the legislative work is nearing completion. And last month, we have also reported to this Council on the outcome of a consultation on glass drinking bottles PRS. And the response has been positive. And now we're working on the expansion of the recovery network. And we have also increased the demand for recycled glass. And we are also in the process of preparing our legislative proposals. We plan to submit our legislative proposal on WEEE, waste electrical and electronic equipment. And we are also going to build the disposal facilities in the Eco Park, and all these would require the support of members. Many members are concerned about food waste. As you understand it, it accounts for some 40% of the total volume of waste being put into the landfills. I'm very pleased to hear that many residents would be interested in installing food waste processors in their housing estates. I would encourage you to make the best use of the Environment and Conservation Fund in doing this. But then we also have to understand that given the high density of population in Hong Kong, there are some constraints. For example, if 50 housing estates were to install such food waste processors in their housing estates, and on average is about 100 kilograms that can be dealt with by each device, and on average it can only take up some 5 tons, and the significance is not that impressive. But then we also have to understand that between now and our migration to a centralized processing facility or sorting facility, we need to sort the waste and turn that into energy. And we also have to first establish this habit among citizens to sort their food waste. And early next year, I'll be coming to this council to apply for funding for phase 1 of the organic waste treatment facility. We hope that members will support that. So we're trying to build a high-density, efficient organic waste treatment center, and we hope that you support it. At present, we are talking about some 3,600 tons of food waste. So by having just 1 or 2 centralized facility would not be enough. And therefore, we are making preparation for installing more facilities. We also welcome the involvement of the private sector so that our capacity can be enhanced. And at Eco Park, there are also some private food waste facilities being constructed. And these projects are in the process of being commissioned, and they will be completing that early next year. And of course, reducing food waste at source is also very important, as some members have noted. We have also got this food waste campaign, and members also talk about waste reduction, and you would also note that that would also provide more business opportunities to the recycling industry. And if the industry were to have more healthy development, then the administration must step up its efforts in coordinating the efforts of the different departments, and the entire community will have to get involved. And the administration has already set up this steering committee on the sustainable development of the recycling industry. During the last 2 months, we have been meeting with the stakeholders and the sector to collect their views. And we have also commissioned a short-term consultancy study to look into the detailed operations of individual recycling operators. And we will look at what they need in terms of support. Just now, some members have also given us some views on how we can support the recycling industry. All these will be taken on board. We also have to step up environmental education and coordinate district-based recycling. We'll be setting up some 8 community green stations at different districts, and we'll be making use of the networks of the non-profit making bodies so that we can roll out our publicity work. And they'll be working with other property management companies in other organizations in promoting the different forms of waste reduction culture. And they also have the resources to hire vehicles so that they can also provide logistic support to the surrounding housing estates. And for the location of 2 community green stations, they have been finalized. They will be located in Shatin and the Eastern District. During the past few months, we've been very grateful for the support of the 2 district councils, and we'll be rolling that out to other districts, and we'll be contacting different district councils. We hope that district councils will give us their support. We hope that the network can be further extended. Well, community green stations is just one of the channels available. We also encourage the public to be involved in reducing waste. During our study visit to South Korea, it has also highlighted the importance of public participation, and this is something that I fully share. And therefore, we are working very hard to mobilize the entire community to achieve the target of waste reduction. As we have said, the ECF is going to give an injection of $5 billion, and we plan that this year, in the 2013-14 financial year, we're going to invest another $200 million to support green projects rolled out by non-government groups. So we'll be increasing the proportion so that about $100 million would be related to waste reduction. And we encourage all NGOs to make use of this fund to help promote this campaign. And some members are also concerned about waste disposal infrastructure. Yes, we've been talking about food waste, recycling, and so on and so forth. But then during our visit to South Korea, we have also noticed that at different levels of the country, they have been dealing with the issue of infrastructure. In South Korea, the department responsible for that is called Resource Recirculation Bureau. Resource recirculation does not just involve the collection and reuse of waste. It also means that we have to make use of state-of-the-art technology to turn waste into energy. And in South Korea, some 20% of the waste goes for incineration. And recently, at a related seminar, some authoritative overseas experts were surprised and shocked that Hong Kong is one of the few cities in the world that still relies very heavily on landfilling. And early this month, I also took a delegation to Macau. Is our neighbor. And the incineration facility, which turns waste into energy, has been in operation for some 20 years. And in Hong Kong, in terms of the use of advanced technology to deal with waste, we are lagging behind most of these advanced economies. This is really very heartbreaking to me. For a very long period of time, we've been over-relying on landfilling, and as some members have said, this is not healthy. That's why we have to make change to this. And indeed, our landfills are bursting to their seams, and this is going to be a crisis. So even if we were to decide to build incineration facility today, it would take about 8 years to plan and build it. So by that time, all the existing landfills will be saturated. So within the short term, we have to understand that expanding the current landfills is the only way out for our end-of-pipe handling of waste. But then various parties will have to work together. We have to adopt a multi-pronged approach. During the last LegCo year, we took on board the views of the public and members on the development of landfills, and during the past few months, we've introduced a number of measures, including the launching of a subsidy scheme for the RCVs. We have enacted legislation to require that all future RCVs will have to have a tailgate cover, and we have also decided that the SENT refuse transfer station would only accept construction waste and we have also decided to lower the fees in order to attract more RCVs to make use of different RTS. So these measures will help enhance the overall hygiene standard of RCVs, and we also tackle the problem of odor in the SENT landfill. And we expect that after taking care of the municipal hygiene issue and also the infrastructure, we hope that in the first quarter of next year, we'll be able to get the support of this council so that we'll be able to expand the 3 landfills in order to cope with this crisis. In the long run, we must not be indecisive, and we have to build incineration facility to turn waste into energy so that we can cope with this crisis. So if we are able to turn waste into energy, then we'll be able to reduce the volume of waste by some 90%. And if we are able to make the best use of waste to energy facility, then that's also very good because it's a form of renewable energy. During the past few years, the Bureau and the Islands District Council have been liaising very closely, and residents have a lot of anxieties about the technology, the emission, and also safety of such facilities. We fully understand that, so we'll try our best to explain to them and provide information to them. And through our earlier visits to Japan, Singapore, and Macau, where they have similar facilities, and we have also been meeting with experts and academics, and we've been looking at the developments worldwide and the performance and different technologies and so on. We have enhanced our understanding of this, and the sludge treatment facility in Tuen Mun will be commissioning shortly. We expect that to enhance the confidence of people towards how it operates. And in March next year, the Environment Bureau is going to conduct a duty visit to Europe to look at their latest developments in terms of waste to energy facilities, and I hope that the EA panel of this council can also form a delegation to accompany us in our visit. All in all, we hope that our consolidated strategy can get the support of this council and the community, whether it's about expansion of the landfills or the building of incinerators and even the MSW charging scheme. Yes, on every one of these projects, there are bound to be opposition, yet they are all very important to the whole package, and some are suggesting that the administration should go for waste reduction and recycling before they would be prepared to give us their support for expanding our waste disposal infrastructure. But then we have to admit that we've been discussing the construction of incineration for close to 20 years, and on the expansion of landfills, we've been talking about that for close to 10 years, and simply we do not have that much time to be biased towards any aspect, and therefore waste reduction and waste disposal infrastructure will be equally important, and therefore we have to do both simultaneously. We hope that I urge members to take care of the overall interest and support the consolidated strategy and the initiatives in the blueprint. Through our joint efforts, we'll be able to cope with this crisis. Thank you.
Ms. Cyd HO, you may now reply. You have 9 minutes 50 seconds. Thank you, Mr. President. The more I hear from the Secretary, the more I get worried. Well, it's said that for waste management policy, there should be a comprehensive framework, and members have talked about a basket of policies. But in fact, the Secretary has kept talking about waste to energy. And how do we do that? Is by the use of incinerators. And on a daily basis, we burn about 3,000 tons of waste. And one is not enough. We need a few more incinerators. Of course, the emission of dioxin has been reduced because of technological development, but still there is emission, and we cannot, of course, we cannot do away with incinerators, but we must not rely too much on incinerators like Macau, which relies on incinerators to treat 90% of the waste, or to export waste to other countries. Apart from toxic emissions, this technology in fact encourages consumption. When products are manufactured, equally, there is an impact on the environment. So, Secretary, if you're really taking a holistic strategy on recovery and recycling, this should be the focus. Well, just now, duty visits is said to be useful.
But if after the duty visit is done, we cannot implement anything, is something done in vain. Some members have talked about their observations in respect of certain details. Let me summarize. Why is it that something that can be done in South Korea cannot be done in Hong Kong? First, support from the government, apart from funding. The government can also legislate to support it. So they adopt a big government approach on environmental protection. But in Hong Kong, we only have a big market. The last CE emphasized that the polluter should pay. Of course, citizens should bear some responsibility. But if you want to shift the responsibility to the public and you just want to change certain behavior through charging, that's just not good enough. For example, the government would like everyone to switch off idling engine. Well, the government is bold enough to implement such a policy. But when it comes to dealing with big businesses, the government is very timid. And also, the government is very mean in terms of land policy. Land will be reserved for auction to be built into luxury flats that we cannot afford. And what they can offer would be certain funds. And the social enterprise or NGOs would only be sustained their operation for 3 years by the fund. Of course, those which are not doing a job should not be allowed to continue, but those which are doing well cannot continue beyond this 3 years. Although the government can grant you further funding later, but even if you are successful, the government would not turn it into part of the recurrent operation in the government. So even successful instances cannot be turned into long-term initiatives. South Korean officials do a lot of consultation, and I learned later that there are people who were afraid of officials, and the officials would consult them time and again, and that's a kind of pressure. The officials would knock on the doors of the people one after another. Of course, now you know you have to go to the district council to consult people. I don't want you to copy this practice because it's considered a nuisance. And some green groups are saying that they are patriotic. If you tell people that they should be patriotic, and they will listen to you. But of course, South Korea is a state of war. North Korea is just across the border, and they had a military government for many years. And that's why the people are more willing to conform. But in Hong Kong, the government is the one who splits the community. How can you convince people to pay for such a policy which may lead to improvement of their lives? So, because they don't see a future, how can you ask people to be patriotic? And many members have talked about this initiative called Beautiful Store. It's a community organization collecting second-hand goods, not exactly broken and out-of-use equipment, but something out of fashion. And 80% of the land they use is donated by developers, by landowners. And they are not talking about sites all over the place, but a big piece of land. In Hong Kong, we think that it's better to use those sites for more lucrative purposes, and no one is willing to donate land. And in the report, as we have indicated, that since it's difficult to ask the business sector to do this, the government should take the lead. We should do it in government buildings, hospitals, car parks owned by the government. We can do this here, Mr. President. We have a big piece of a big space out of this complex. We can allow some organizations to distribute remodeled goods. We have an NGO called Collecting Things, which was started by 3 office ladies. They would exchange their clothing and accessories, and now it's a 1,000-person operation. It's done in a shopping center, and those people involved can still enjoy shopping without spending money because they will exchange their old stuff with other people's stuff. It's still something new to them when you have exchanged something back. Why do we have to rely on community organizations to do this? Because the government isn't willing to do this. But this is difficult to sustain. The Secretary is telling us that we are being besieged by the waste. So it's an urgent matter. This evening we were told that the government is going to spend $11.7 billion on the replacement of vehicles. The Liberal Party would like to suggest that we should have some $600 million set aside to create job opportunities on recycling and make use of reused goods. Community organizations do not have the expertise, so they need some incentive and help. But we are also concerned about government-business collusion, so make sure that it's transparent. And in terms of resources, we met a deputy director 4 times a week for dealing with different laws. So it's the same deputy director for all those meetings. We need to support the creation of new posts, and the FS must be supportive. The FS must not be miserly. We all need new thinking. Thank you. And I'll put a question to you, and that is that the motion moved by Ms. Cyd HO be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by majority, respective of each of the 2 groups of members. I declare the motion passed.